Kamala's going to write a book. I do wonder if they release or leak out the advance. But I honestly cannot believe, I'll be generous, 10,000 copies. Over or under, Brianna, do you think that Kamala Harris sells more than 10,000 copies of a book?
I think so. And I think it's going to be driven largely in part by white, college-educated women who need to somehow reassure themselves that they weren't wrong this past election cycle. And Kamala's going to break down, what happened that wasn't her fault that made them lose the election. So
All
I'm
right,
not
Amber,
making three.
Amber, do you think she sells more or less than 10,000 books?
I'm going to take the under on this one because I think what's going to happen is that all these journalists are going to get a review copy. Look, yep. I'd love a review copy too. And they're going to pull out the most interesting parts. They're going to rip her to shreds. And there's going to be no reason for anyone to actually buy the book because you can just read about the most interesting parts in the media.
All right, guys, good Thursday to you. I hope you are ready for the weekend. I am already. But you guys know, you're a long-time watcher. You know I love the panel show because this is one where we get to mix it up, have some fun, have a really entertaining conversation. These countries coming in under the wire. Howard Lutnick has got to be a busy, busy man today. And Jamieson Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative, getting these countries calling in, just saying, I'll take it. Whatever the deal is, I'll take it. Just put me down for a yes. Give me whatever tariff you can. Lots of deals rolling in last night. South Korea, Cambodia, others trying to get it under the August 1st deadline. Pelosi just getting whacked for all the insider trading and money she's making from Trump. She's on the defense. Even CNN asked her about it. I'm going to play you that clip in a minute. And then Kamala Harris turning down the first of probably two big races. She's saying no to running for governor of California. I'm going to ask the panel, does that mean she's running for president, or is she wised up and realized that she's just a bad candidate? So much to break into with the panel in just a minute. Tomorrow, by the way, an absolutely amazing show. John McLaughlin, President Trump's pollster, is going to be here to give us the latest on what's going well for the Republicans, the Democrats' historically low poll ratings. We'll break it all down with him. And then Ryan Grodetsky is going to talk to us about redistricting. This is a big part of the plan to keep the House. A lot of focus on Texas, but we're going to go through all the different states and find out where there's potential to squeeze more houses out, how the Dems are going to respond. If you're a political dork, junkie, whatever you want to call yourself like me, you're going to want to see this show. So hit that subscribe and notification button. And next week, Harmeet Dillon's going to be with us. Todd Lyons, the ICE director, a big, big week. And every weekend, you guys know we do these rants. So hit that notification button and subscribe button. Go to Apple. And if you're a viewer, go to the Apple and the Spotify. Just hit 5 stars. Look, Democrats would do it if I told them to do it. So you guys should do it. Just give me the 5-star rating. That's all I'm asking for. It doesn't cost you anything. Democrats listen to what their leader's saying. Just do it. Maybe you guys will do that if I ask you. Anyway, before I bring in the panel, as we get ready for the weekend, you know what I do every weekend. I love getting out there on the grill. And Riverbend Ranch has been an absolute game changer for me. I grill everything now. I did the steak tips and some medallions last weekend. I did the hot dogs, which are amazing. I don't know where you come down on hot dogs, but I'm going to tell you, if you're a hot dog lover, you're going to blow your mind with these things. I know they love to talk about the strip and the ribeye and the medallions, and those are unreal. But the hot dogs, I'm telling you, if your kids are hot dog eaters, and like I said, I just steal them from them. Everything that they do at Riverbend Ranch is amazing. It's 21 days aged. There's no antibiotics, growth hormones. This stuff is literally from the ranches of Montana and Wyoming to your plate. And it's marbling and tenderness like I've never tasted anywhere else. I've gone on a lot of people's expense accounts to nice steakhouses. Nothing compares to this. You cannot get any of this even close in the grocery store or at a steakhouse. Go to riverbendranch.com. Use promo code Sean, S-E-A-N. I spell it the right way. S-E-A-N to get $20 off your first order. Again, riverbendranch.com, code word Sean. I'm telling you, I think I've been buying the cowboy bundle. Choose what you want, but that thing is epic. All right. Talk about amazing leaders in Washington, D.C. You guys have seen Penny Nance on my show. The work that Concerned Women for America is doing is unbelievable. These guys were at the forefront of so many of the culture wars before it was cool to be at the forefront of culture wars. They were fighting to keep men out of women's sports before it was a cool thing to do. They've been fighting for family, sanctity of life, religious liberty, parental choice in education, fighting sexual exploitation, national sovereignty, and support for Israel for decades. And it's under the leadership of Penny Nance. These guys are doing such great work around the country, setting up chapters, making sure that our voices are heard. If you can do what you can to support the great work of Penny Nance and Concerned Women for America for a donation of $20, and you can give as much as you want. It starts at $20 though. So please be as generous as you can. No matter what, for as little as $20 though, you're going to get a copy of Penny's book, A Woman's Guide, 7 Rules for Success in Business and Life. And you can help support the great work they're doing, taking on these amazing cultural wars. Go to Concerned Women, that's plural, concernedwomen.org/Sean. Again, spelled the right way, SEAN, concernedwomen.org/Sean for your book. Thank you for your support for Concerned Women of America. Without further ado, though, I want to bring in some kick-ass women of America. Amber Duke, the senior editor over there at the Daily Caller, Brianna Lyman, who is a correspondent over at the Federalist, and my male counterpart to balance it out, new to the show, Jared Stetman over there at the Daily Signal. Guys, good to see you all. I want to start with just sound like a teacher today. Jared, you're new to the show. How would you grade the week for the Trump administration?
I would say this week is an A. I mean, I think not only has there been some very serious trade deals, of course, with the EU now coming out that South Korea is going to be a big part of that, all coming down before the August 1st deadline. And we have some major deals happening with higher education, with universities, with Columbia University, with Brown University, potentially now with Harvard. Those are massive wins. Those are massive wins on the economy and massive wins in delivering the promises that Trump said he would. So I think this has been a very good week, a strangely, I think, kind of quiet week of winning, but I think a positive news cycle for the Trump administration, no question.
All right. Brianna Lyman, do you like Professor Stetman's grading? Where would you come down on the week? And did you like the content there in his presentation, or are there other things that you're going to throw into the mix for your grade?
Well, I do agree with him. I will say, I think the biggest thing is that new report we got out yesterday showing the economy grew actually 3%, that inflation continues to cool. And I think that's important because we have heard for months now from the propaganda press that the economy was going to tank. We were going to head into a recession. Things were going to be doom and gloom. They warned us about this for months. And like every other prediction they make, it doesn't actually come true. Just a few weeks ago, they said, oh, you're going to see cracks in the economy start to show. Thank God we're not seeing those cracks. So not only did Donald Trump just win in general with that report, but he's also defeating the media at the same time. And that deserves an A+ in my opinion.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's literally been the bane of my existence. Why do we keep calling people experts when they're like epically wrong all the time? Dean Amber Duke, because of your time on the show, I'm giving you full on Dean status. So what about the professors here? Do you like their grades for the week, and is there anything else you would add in?
I think they're pretty close. I'm actually going to go a little bit lower to a B+, and here's why.
This is why you're a dean. I don't want to be taking your class.
Yeah,
I
we
need
don't
a little
grade on a
inflation.
We're too
soft. I need a curve.
All right. So the reason why is I think, obviously all of the successes mentioned are totally valid, and I agree with all of them. But there's been a few things going on that are still causing a little bit of division between Trump and the Republican caucus, which is where I think that grade drops a little bit and gives bait to the media to attack the Trump administration. Namely, there was this spat yesterday with Trump talking about the bill that would ban congressional stock trading and going after Senator Hawley for allegedly killing an amendment that would have allowed an investigation into specifically Nancy Pelosi's history of stock trading and getting rich in Congress. And then there's also sort of the still lingering commentary about the Epstein files. There was this DOJ memo that was submitted to the courts that indicated there were only these 2 law enforcement witnesses that testified in front of the grand jury in the Epstein and Maxwell cases. So there's still, I think, a lack of closure for the Trump base on that issue as well. So those are the 2 things that kind of maybe knocked it down to a B+ for me. And then one last final thing, and this is not Trump's fault at all, obviously, but the economy is going to be a huge issue heading into the midterms. The fact that the Fed still has not cut rates is a huge disappointment.
All right. Professor Dean Duke, I'm going to talk about, I want to get to a lot of these issues because I think between Pelosi and the Fed and the economy, I want to hit them all. So I look, I might go A-. I'm definitely not taking Amber Duke's class ever because you are too tough. I think Professor Stetman and Professor Lyman are more, I think. Jared, you brought up the deadline and these trade deals, the EU, South Korea, Cambodia. Give me your prediction for the next 24 hours. How many more, like, do you think that this is going to be a lot of, like, I actually joked a minute ago, like, I wonder how many of these countries, because President Trump said, I'm just going to start sending a letter. That's the deal. So I'm going to say, Botswana, 22%. That's your tariff. That's our deal. I wonder how many of these countries in the next 24 hours literally just say, uncle, if we can cut a deal at 17, I'm in. Like, how do you see the next 24 hours playing out?
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of students like me when I was in high school and college getting their assignment in at the very, very last second, trying to get the bare minimum of what they can get out of it, for sure. I think that is going to roll in the next 24 hours, really. I think that is, especially for a lot of these countries, being hit with a major 25% tariff is a big deal for a lot of economies, especially smaller economies. I think they pushed this off for a long time. And we see the kind of pressure was put on the EU. I mean, the EU knuckling when they did is a big deal. I think many people were saying that they would have a united front against President Trump and against the United States. Well, that never materialized. I think for a lot of these countries, this is realpolitik. I mean, they losing access to the U.S. market is worth even a trade deal that they see as maybe lopsided in the U.S.'s favor because of the pull of the U.S. economy. President Trump knows he has a huge amount of leverage, and by setting this deadline and creating a sense of urgency for these countries, which is very important as far as how Trump likes to negotiate. And so I do think that we're going to get a number of countries, probably large and small. Now, of course, the actual details of these deals is oftentimes not quite released, but I think we will get some preliminary deals right in just before the deadline. And I think those negotiations will be ongoing afterward too. They're going to be a lot of countries that are going to get hit with big tariffs are going to be very concerned, and they're still going to come to the table even after the deadline is passed.
Brianna, you talked about the experts, right? And always being wrong on the economy. The same nut jobs said that President Trump, they came up with this acronym TACO, Trump always chickens out. I don't think that anyone would suggest that that's applicable this week. It seems like, and quite the opposite, these other countries are folding and jumping in. And it's like the experts are wrong about the economy, and they also seem to be wrong about this chickening out thing. It's this consistent sense of being wrong.
Yeah, and what's interesting is for the experts to make predictions about a host of things, you expect that. What you shouldn't expect from the experts is to make a prediction about Donald Trump, who is a businessman. He has spent his entire life making negotiations and playing hardball with people and countries. So this is something that is his bread and butter. So we should have expected that Donald Trump would be successful in that. So for the experts to weigh in because they have been armchair experts rather than actually being, in the nitty gritty is almost embarrassing for them. And I think that people over the past few years have come to trust the so-called experts less and less. Remember, we had the 51 intelligence officials who were, essentially experts on intelligence. We had experts saying that, yeah, Biden seems like a little off, but he's fine. He's great. So every time the experts come out, they've been proven wrong. They've never been right on anything once, really, in the past decade. So the only reason that they continue to get any kind of notoriety or credibility is because you have these left-wing outlets who, again, should be referred to all the time as propaganda press, propping them up as though they have legitimacy. But I think as the decline in media continues to go down, or continues to increase, I think that the distrust and the decline in experts will also do the same.
Yeah. Amber, I know this sounds like, but we're just past the 6-month mark. We talked when you were commenting on the grade, right? You talked about the economy, trade, a bunch of things. And it got me thinking, and I don't mean to like create a firestorm here, but if you had to at 6 months out, say who the best or maybe the top 2 cabinet officials are, and I say that in the sense that have advanced the agenda, right? Who has taken where we were on January 20th and advanced the ball in their area the furthest. Give me your top 2 or 3.
I would go Lutnick, McMahon, and Rubio. Those would be my 3.
Okay. Lutnick because of trade.
Yeah, McMahon because of the settlements with the universities.
Oh, see, this is interesting. I didn't know you'd go settlement. I thought you'd go because of dismantling the department.
Well, that's part of it too. But I think actually holding the universities accountable is arguably more important than the dismantling of the department.
That's a great point. Grader. Yeah, this is why she's a tough grader.
Yeah. I mean, because that's changing the whole trajectory of education in this country.
I agree.
Right? I mean, there's not any greater place that indoctrination is happening than in secondary education.
By the way, to your point, one of the things that I find so beautiful about a lot of the things that happen, right? So you talk about education, they have, hasn't gotten the attention it deserves, but they've been going after the accreditation. I don't know I apologize, what the right word is. It's boards or whatever. And they're basically saying, you guys have been, for lack of a better word, a slave to these accreditation boards. And then the accreditation board says you need to be woke and DEI friendly, and then they shift. If you can attack the credibility of the accreditation board, to your point, you really bend the curve. And then obviously, I think from the foreign policy standpoint, I get this. All right, Jarrett, take a look at that list that Amber Duke put out. Agree, disagree? Who would you move around or add in?
Yeah, obviously, I think Secretary Rubio has been phenomenal at state, so I think he's very much at the top of the list. I mean, he's wearing so many hats these days. I mean, it's hard to write him off. And I think that was a great pick with McMahon, too. Somebody who actually I sort of didn't quite expect to be this good. I mean, she doesn't really have an education background, but has been very smart in the way she went about not only, of course, deconstructing the department itself, but, of course, as Amber talked about, going after higher education. I would say if I was to add one, I realize he's been maybe a little more trouble, but I do think Pete Hegseth at the Department of Defense has been very good. I know there's been some internal discussions, debate, turmoil about what he's done there, but revitalizing the military has been a priority of, I think, Trump 1.0. It is in Trump 2.0. I think changing the staff there, changing the mission. Of course, we've actually been engaged in an actual conflict in Iran, and I think that he has done a good job of changing the culture there, especially given the fact that recruitment is very much up compared to where it was a few years ago, where we had a real crisis. And I think that you see some of that confidence from especially the regular kids who are now signing up for the military. I think you see some of that returning. So I think that's a very positive sign for the future of American national defense. So I'm very happy with the Secretary of Defense as well.
Okay. And they've been rewriting the curriculum in those military academies and colleges too, and removing all of the woke books. So they are kind of hand in hand with McMahon, changing how we educate people. And when it comes to educating the future members of the military, I mean, you can't overstate the importance of that.
Absolutely.
All right, Brianna Lyman, this is up to you now. You've got 4 people in play. Do you add to this list anyone that you want to throw into the mix or change out?
So I, first of all, love Rubio. I think he should be at the top of the list. I don't know if this edition counts, but go with me here. I think Tulsi Gabbard, because the declassification of all of these documents showing that the Obama administration, and Obama in particular, along with the intelligence agency, went through great lengths to try and legitimize a Clinton-funded lie to disrupt the 2016 election. And until you shed light on what happened in our corrupt intelligence agencies and what happened in the 2016 election, you can't always move forward 100% because there's always those questions of what happened. So her declassifying this and raising awareness about an issue that we really didn't get an opportunity to talk fairly about because the left-wing press dominated the conversation for so long is really important for the country. I think to, one, shrink the size and scope of the federal government, because once you see the corruption they were involved in, you can't justify letting them continue that way. And 2, bringing accountability to people like John Brennan, maybe people like Obama. There's a whole list of people who need to be brought to account.
Love it. I'd throw in Sean Duffy at DOT. Yep. Okay. Again, and I'm with you guys. Like this to me is a very, part of the reason I asked the question is because I can make a strong case for almost anyone. Doug Burgum, what he's doing at Interior with our energy. Lee Zeldin yesterday talking about the admission standards and what he's doing to root out all the climate change stuff. It's amazing, though, that we can have a conversation. And part of the reason I wanted to do this, where we can literally make the case for almost any of his cabinet nominees. Whereas in the Biden administration, I joke about this, but I'm serious that I bet you really good political astute observers might be challenged to come up with 3 Biden cabinet members total, never mind that did anything. And I know you laugh, but I'm like, this says a lot about the quality. And here's the broader point before I move on to Kamala Harris that I think is so interesting. In every one of these cases, we can talk about what they're doing. And I think Brianna just made a really strong case about Tulsi, obviously Rubio and Lutnick. Like, we can say this is what they've gotten done. And where the media gets this wrong is they keep saying, oh, these guys are loyal to Trump. a dog can be loyal, a rock can be loyal. Just sit there, right? Don't do anything, a lump on the log. What these guys are disruptors. And that's the thing. Each time you guys made a case about somebody, you were talking about what they were doing to change things. And that's what I think the media misses about who these cabinet members are. Anyone disagree with that?
No, not at all. And I think it's so, every time I hear that loyalty sort of disparaging comment, I always think, well, what is the cabinet member supposed to be? They are literally put in that position to execute the president's agenda. Like, why is that used as some kind of slur by the left? Do we really think that Merrick Garland and Lloyd Austin and Gina Raimondo, I named three, I'll take my gold star, I'll take my sticker, but I mean, come on, do we really think any of those people, I mean, granted, Biden wasn't exactly a president, but do we really think that they weren't going along with whatever the Biden bureaucracy wanted to do? That is literally their job.
Yeah, and that's additionally remarkable about the Biden presidency. Given that he was a president out to lunch, you would think that at the very least he would have a strong cabinet making decisions for him, but he didn't even have that. It really was just the deep state presidency from the beginning. Many of his cabinet officers seem very much like him. As you mentioned, Lloyd Austin, who literally went AWOL for over a week when he had a health emergency. Quite ridiculous things. We don't have that. I think we actually have something like sort of a team of rivals. I think there's a lot of debate and discussion even within the cabinet members, but in their own individual domains, I think they were selected to do a particular job that President Trump had his eye on from the experience that he had in his first administration, from his years out of office, and now had a vision for when he re-entered it. And I think his cabinet has been a huge part of that. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing that's so funny. Until Amber Duke said Merrick Garland, if you had put a gun to my head and said, tell me the attorney general, I mean, God, I literally, I think part of it is I would have remembered 6 months ago, but I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so quick how we all forget. All right, Brianna, I want to switch subjects because to no fanfare, Kamala Harris announced that she wouldn't run for governor. So the first question I have for you is, are you surprised that she announced that she isn't running for governor?
I'm not surprised. And the reason I say that is because when you lose so badly in a presidential election, it's hard to justify not only to voters, but to donors why they should now take another opportunity and spend upwards of $1 billion. Not that the California race would cost that much, but why they should spend money. And I think she kind of answered part of the question this morning when she said, actually, I'm writing a book about how bad I lost. And that's why I'm going to focus on my book writing and my book coming out rather than running for governor, which if the choice was then between simply writing a book or running for governor, maybe she should have ran for governor because writing a book entails you rehashing how bad of a candidate you were. So it's like she's caught between a rock and a hard place and there's no good answer.
Okay, before I get the other two of you guys in all seriousness, because Biden got $10 million. Mm-hmm. I actually think it's going to be a massive flop, okay, Biden's. But to your point, Brianna, like, Kamala's going to write a book. I do wonder if they release or leak out the advance. But I honestly cannot believe, I'll be generous, 10,000 copies. Over or under, Brianna, do you think that Kamala Harris sells more than 10,000 copies of a book?
I think so. And I think it's going to be driven largely in part by white college-educated women who need to somehow reassure themselves that they weren't wrong this past election cycle. And Kamala's going to break down what happened that wasn't her fault that made them lose the election. So I'm not maybe three.
Okay. God, that says such a bad thing about that. Okay. Amber, do you think she sells more or less than 10,000 books?
I'm going to take the under on this one because I think what's going to happen is that all these journalists are going to get a review copy. Look, yep. I'd love a review copy too. And they're going to pull out the most interesting parts. They're going to rip her to shreds. And there's going to be no reason for anyone to actually buy the book because you can just read about the most interesting parts in the media.
Time out. Amber Duke, do you realize what you just said?
What?
You said they're going to pull out the most interesting part.
I am. Then there's not interesting parts. Yes.
That's what I was thinking. As you were saying, I'm like, is there an interesting part of a Kamala Harris book?
By the way, what I think is so funny about the book is the way it's being presented and framed, right? So it's called 107 Days. So even the title alone tells you exactly why Kamala thinks she lost. She thinks she lost because she didn't have enough time, which is pure lunacy. Her rating went down the longer she was in the race. Her highest approval, her most enthusiasm was after they revealed that they weren't running a corpse anymore. Like she was better than the corpse. That was all she had. And then the more that she presented herself to voters, the more people realized that she was unsuitable for the job and actually quite dislikable. So for her to say, well, it's the 107 days that was the problem. It was the fastest campaign, the shortest campaign in American history. It's just totally delusional.
Super insightful. Actually, just for the record, I'm going to steal that analysis. So you don't...
Feel free.
Yeah, I mean, that was beautiful because I was like, you know what? That's exactly right. She gave us a huge tell. So I will be taking that as my own. Jared, here's the thing. Were you surprised that she didn't run for governor?
No, I really wasn't. Although, look, Democrat politics in California, you're pretty much a shoo-in. You really don't even have to run for election, it seems. At this point, you're basically selected. And that's how Harris has basically survived her entire career. She's really never had to face an actual divided election and triumphed. The only one was losing in 2024 to President Trump. Her entire career, she's basically been selected for higher office until she ended up where she was. And she didn't even have to run in the Democrat primary. She could. In fact, she entirely failed in 2020. So I think that there are a lot of Democrats right now who are not happy with the stink of the Biden-Harris failure. I think they want desperately a new direction. They want something even more radical. There's a reason why they're going for the Zohran Mamdanis, the ones who they think will be more confrontational with the Republican Party. And I think they'd like to end that chapter for the Democrat Party. They now associate Harris with the Democrat establishment at this point. I don't think they want her to be governor of California, and I certainly don't think they want her to go forward as their 2028 presidential nominee. I think that Republicans would certainly be very happy with that. I don't think the Democrat base would have anything of it, and I think the Democrat establishment won't either, ultimately.
All right, so let's, Brianna, back to you, and I'll go through all of you guys. Does she run for president now? I know we talked about the book, but the next pending decision is: are you running for president? Where do you think you come down on that?
This is a tough one for a bunch of reasons. I think the biggest one is because she did so poorly, not only as vice president, but a senator. It's not like she has a winning legacy that she could point back to, especially because it's such a short time frame. So she'd have to say, look, in the past 4 years, the economy's gotten better. Optimism has gone up. Trade deals are going better. But remember, that's actually not good and I should be back in office because you remember how things were when Joe Biden and I were in office. So I don't think that's going to work out. But I also think that the playing field, to Jared's point, is a little different this time. People don't want Democratic establishment. And because Kamala was tied so closely to Biden and didn't rebuke him, had she ousted Joe Biden, not via the secret coup that Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them were involved in, but via the 25th Amendment, she actually would have legitimized herself a little bit more, given herself credibility, and said, I'm not part of the establishment. I am putting the country first, even if it hurts my ties with the old playbook of the Democratic Party. She didn't do that. So she actually shot herself in the foot there. Had she done that, I think she would have had a better leg to stand on for 28.
Amber, do you think she runs for president?
I actually think maybe the book is the test case. Like if people buy my book, right?
That's
I know.
It.
Did I steal it? But it was okay.
No,
so the other thing,
just for the record, your first analysis gave me this. I mean, once you started talking to me, talking about this, I started going, you know what? Amber's onto something. This is like her proof of concept. If you agree with me that it was a timing thing, sorry, keep going because you are absolutely right.
So the other thing I want to pull out of her statement when she said she wasn't running for governor, similar to the book title, I think there's kind of a tell in here. She says, as we look ahead, we must be willing to pursue change through new methods and fresh thinking, committed to our same values and principles, but not bound by the same playbook. It almost sounds like she's kind of passing the torch to the next generation, right? So maybe I'm reading too much into the tea leaves here, but I think that specific phrasing matters too.
So wait, are you a yes or a no on her, or just?
I'm leaning towards no.
Oh,
I think she wants to, and I think she's testing things out with the book. But that statement about fresh thinking, it implies new leadership, and maybe she realizes that she's had too many shots, and the Democrats aren't going to embrace her anymore.
Okay. All right. I can buy that. The only thing here's my one thing. I don't think she knows anything else. She doesn't know a job where it's not paid for by the government or elected office. I don't know. She's sitting there going, Dougie, what do I do?
Maybe she can learn to crochet like her stepdaughter.
That's right. Jared, let me ask you this, because Amber's point about passing, let's just assume for the sake of conversation, and frankly, I don't think they even care anyway, but let's just assume that she doesn't run. In all seriousness, like if you had to rank, if you were a Republican operative that or you're at the RNC and you have to figure out we only can do oppo on 3 candidates to get ready for the general election. So we have to bet on 3. Who are the 3 that you would do opposition research on right now? If that's it, you get funds to do 3 candidates and that's all you'll be able to do. So you better be right. Who are the 3 that you think are going to make it?
Yeah, I think the field is very much evolving right now, but I think as far as ones who are potentially dangerous, one would be Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, the sort of moderate-leaning, or at least rhetorically, governor of Pennsylvania. Of course, I think he is sort of trapped in a position between the angry Democrat base and the need to sort of go centrist, third way, Clinton-esque kind of thing in the future. I think he's actually dangerous as a national candidate. The question is, can he make it to that point? I think there should be a preparation for that. I think no question Gavin Newsom is going to be there. He's been running for president his whole life, and there's no question he's kind of waited for this moment. I think he's a very talented liar, and I think he's actually a very successful politician in that sense. I think he is a dangerous opponent, even if I think it's unlikely that he would actually win national office. And if I was to pick a third, I guess I'll go with a total curveball, and I'm going to say AOC, actually. I'm just going to go with the Democrat base in full revolt, going after somebody who represents that base. I know she may seem like a little old news, but somebody's got to have the Bernie wing, the more radical left, because I think there's a very good chance somebody from the more hard left is ultimately going to emerge as their candidate in 2028. I think that's a real possibility. Even if that may not make sense electorally, I think that's a very real possibility given where the party's going right now. So maybe AOC, maybe I'm wrong about that. She represents that, but I do think there's going to be a curveball candidate thrown in.
Can I jump in? I have an addition, and I can't think of the first name, but Bashir from Kentucky.
Andy Bashir. That's who I was going to say.
Bless you. Yes. This is a man who obviously wins a state that has a lot of Republican leaders coming from the state, and yet he's a Democrat. He's also someone that people are viewing as moderate, and I've actually seen him. I think him and his wife were on a cover of a magazine recently.
So they just did a Vogue profile.
Yes, thank you. They did a Vogue profile. So there's definitely some chatter around him and what he could do as a leader. And I think him and Shapiro actually would do better than Gavin Newsom, because Gavin's very alienating to everybody outside of California. Josh Shapiro and Bashir, they come across like that old mansion type Democrat.
Yeah. All right.
So
you go ahead. Give me.
Yeah, I want Bashir and Vance to run against one another, because JD Vance's roots are obviously in Kentucky, and Andy Bashir is fashioning himself. If you read the Vogue profile, it's all about, he's the sort of representation of the working class Kentuckian, and he can win in MAGA country, which, like, Sean, you and I both know these people do not understand Kentucky politics, like, as far as they can throw a shoe. Their reading of Kentucky is hilarious. Bashir's father was governor. It was a longtime Blue Dog Democrat state that went Trump. It's sort of similar to those blue wall Midwestern states, and the idea that it's just like this deep red bastion is obviously nonsensical. But if he were running against JD Vance and trying to make the case that he really represents middle America and the working class, he would get torn up and eaten alive. He's a Nepo baby. He is actually socially very liberal. He vetoed a bill on the gender affirming care for trans minors. Like, there's so much compromise there. I want him to finally get the treatment of the right-wing oppo, conservative and independent media actually scrutinizing his record, because I think that he's managed to get away with so much for so long in presenting himself as this sort of moderate Democratic figure when it's so far from the truth.
Okay. I like the Bashir one. I actually will go with Gavin Newsom ahead of ahead of Josh Shapiro because he's got problems with Israel, and that's going to be a big deal in the Democratic primary. I don't know that AOC, she'll probably primary Chuck Schumer. My third, and I think people who've watched the show forever know, and everyone may disagree, I think Pete Buttigieg is my outside guy. He's too short, and I say this is a short guy. Short people don't get elected president. But I think he fits, Democrats figure that he fits the suit, right? He's a veteran. He's articulate. He's gay. He says the right things about progressives. He's got a problem with blacks, and that's going to be a problem. Black Democratic voters, he's polling at 0%. That's a problem. But depending on how they shake the primary, the other X factor to me is the Democratic primary calendar. Where do they start? Because if it starts in South Carolina, where there would be a big chunk of black Democrats that would be decisive, that would kill Buttigieg. All right. I want to get to Pelosi and stock trading, but before I do that, I have become, at least somewhat over the week, like last week, it was all about Coldplay and that couple from Astronomer. This week, I'm now captivated by another cultural phenomena, and this is the Sydney Sweeny jeans ad. I don't even know what Sydney Sweeney's politics are. She may hate the fact that she just got dragged into this. But somehow it wasn't a big deal when Beyonce did this denim ad, and now we've got Sydney Sweeny, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like we're back during the Biden years where it's like, it was a fun play on words. She has great jeans. That was the tagline. And everyone got the joke. That's funny. It's cute. I mean, like, there was some ad genius that was like, hey, we're going to do this play on words. Ha, ha, ha. And everyone was like, that's awesome. And suddenly it's now racist. And apparently it's like you fat shame people because the undertones of that word is that you're not thin. I'm literally blown away. Okay, so Amber Duke, is this nuts or is this like just this is the left's last gasp?
I think this is the last gasp. And, what's so funny about the reaction to the Sydney Sweeny ad is that we had to live through 5 to 10 years of fat women on the cover of Shape magazine, fat women on the cover of Women's Health, and fat people selling all of the clothes that we were consuming. And you get one busty blonde girl and everybody loses their freaking minds. It's so funny to me. These people are beyond desperate. Good Morning America did a segment comparing this to Nazism, saying it was a Nazi dog whistle because they did a double entendre with the word jeans or a pun with the word jeans. I love this. And the reason we know it's the last gasp is because American Eagle stock went up 14%, according to Business Insider, and the jeans have consistently sold out. You have multiple women on X saying, I tried to buy the jeans. The order got canceled. I bought 2 pairs yesterday.
No way.
Yeah, I did. And it actually took me back to middle school because I only wore American Eagle jeans in middle school and have since moved on. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going back. I'm going back to my bread and butter. We're going to get the American Eagle jeans because who knows, like maybe I could look 1% more like Sydney Sweeny if I wore these jeans. And who doesn't want to look more like Sydney Sweeny?
Exactly. Brianna, I don't mean to gender you here or whatever the left says, but like as the other person who would probably wear American Eagle jeans, I don't even know if they sell them to men or not. But
now, wait a minute.
Sorry, yeah, Jared's trying to jump in. He's like, I was going to squeeze into those. Do you agree with Amber? Does this make you less likely? Did you even think about American Eagle before? I don't even understand. Was that a brand that people would have considered, or does this kind of put them on the map?
Well, to Amber's point, American Eagle was pretty popular back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s.
Yes.
And I will also add to Amber's point, not only did we have to deal with obese persons trying to sell his clothing, we had to deal, what was it, Dylan Mulvaney, wasn't he on the magazine cover of swimwear?
Yes.
Right? So
yeah,
that was
and he did a Nike announcement, I think.
All right, those things are okay, but a hot chick in denim is not. And the problem with the left is they have a habit of viewing everything through the lens of race or ideology, and it's an extremely alienating worldview. And you have the same people who are wringing their hands right now saying, could American Eagle and Sydney Sweeny be Hitler? Are the same people who for the past 8 months have said, how should we win back young men 18 to 29? Here's a novel approach. Let them like a hot girl in jeans. Let them see a busty woman in jeans and not call them a Nazi for it. That's how you will slowly but surely send a signal to young men, hey, you can come to our side of the party. Because right now young men are saying, I can't even like a hot chick. Why would I go to that party?
I agree. All right, I want to do one quick thing, and I mean quick, of predictions. I started this last week, and then we got to winners and losers. Jared, I'm going to start with you. Nancy Pelosi got whacked yesterday, big kerfuffle about stock trading. I just want to bottom line this, okay? So this is yes or no. Will Congress ban members of Congress from trading stocks? Jared Stepman, yes or no?
I'd love to say yes. I know this is something that has bothered me. I know it bothers a lot of voters. I certainly have heard lectures from my
yes or no.
my father about this for so long. I'm going to say no, it doesn't happen. The Congress has too much of an interest in not
Amber
letting
Duke.
this happen.
Amber Duke.
I also sadly think no.
Brianna?
I'm a no.
Oh my God. I was going into this as a yes. All right, well, let's try another one. Ghislaine Maxwell, a lot of talk from her team about seeking a pardon. Does she get a pardon? Jared, yes or no?
I'm going to say no.
Brianna?
God willing, no.
Amber?
No. Limited immunity, maybe.
I can't. The backlash would be massive. All right, let's move on. Jerome Powell did not raise interest rates. A lot of people pissed. I think that economic report might have saved him. Jared, yes or no? Does he get fired before his term in May is up? Yes or no?
I think no, but he might step down. So maybe that's in between.
All right. Brianna, does he get fired? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, Amber Duke.
I'm also no. I think he's too useful of a foil for Trump.
I'm conflicted. If he doesn't cut it in September, he is fired, though. I will tell you that. If he doesn't cut rates by a quarter basis points at the September meeting, then he is fired. Otherwise, I agree with Amber on this. All right, here's another interesting one. Not fired, but more resigned. Does Dan Bongino leave before the end of the year as deputy director of the FBI? Jared Stepman.
I'm going to say no.
Brianna.
I'm going to lean towards yes.
That he does leave.
Yeah, I think he's too honest.
All right, Amber Duke.
This is the hardest one you've asked so far. I think I'm with Brianna on this one.
Why?
I think what happened a couple of weeks ago with him sort of disappearing and threatening to leave will probably happen again. And I think the other members of the admin will not like it if that happens again. And whether or not he's right to leave is a different question.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm torn on this one myself, so I'm not even going to give an answer. I got 3 more quick ones, and then we're going to winners and losers. So there's 144 nominees of President Trump waiting for the Senate to get passed, okay? Assuming 0 before they leave for recess, how many come out of the Senate? Give me a number between 0 and 144, Jarrett.
Oh, I will say, I'll say 100.
Oh, Brianna.
Wow, I was going to say like 15 to 20.
Yeah. Amber Duke, where are you?
I'd put it in the 50 to 60 range. I think Senator Thune's going to try to do the right thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. My magic number is like 50, 55. I think that's where he tries to do this, and then they claim that that's a deal and walk away. All right, 2 more quick things. There is discussion about a tariff rebate, right? That all of these tariffs have brought in massive revenue. First month in June that we've had where we've run as a government a surplus in over a decade. There's a proposal to give Americans a rebate versus using that money to help pay down the debt. Amber, rebate or debt?
Debt.
Jared.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say debt on that too. I don't like the rebate idea.
I'm going to go with rebate.
Okay. I love a good rebate. I'm cheap, but I got to go debt. I'm sorry. I can't believe all right, last question. And then we get to winners and losers. MSNBC is spinning off from NBC. Does it survive more than 24 months? Amber Duke.
Yes.
Jarrett.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes.
Brianna.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going no. I think after 24 months, it doesn't have the audience to sustain itself, and it quietly folds into like a streaming service. All right, let's get to winners and losers. We got to keep this tight. Amber Duke, who is your winner? Who is your loser?
Winner's American Eagle. Loser is I guess Nancy Pelosi.
Okay, both good. Jarrett, give me a winner and give me a loser.
The winner is the American people after all these trade deals that have come down, and the loser is the economists, the experts who said that it would all be a disaster. That's the biggest loser of all collectively.
I I think that second part, which I beat to a dead horse, I agree with. These experts, we got to stop calling them experts. To Brianna's point earlier, we don't call the press anymore. We call them the propaganda, the left-wing legacy. Like, we got to stop saying the so-called expert or the failed experts. I mean, like, let's start branding them, because I think that's absolutely right. We've done a good job of that at the press. Brianna, who do you have as your winner and loser?
Well, I think to Jared's point, my winner would be Donald Trump because he's proved the media wrong and he's helping the American people. I think the loser, and they're not really in office right now, would be Biden's Department of Justice because they launched a lawsuit in Galveston, Texas a few years ago that has now led to the redistricting debacle that we're seeing in Texas, in which Republicans have a pretty darn good shot of getting a lot of these coalition districts out of there.
Wait. So just can you expand on that for 1 second? So that lawsuit is what's giving us the ability to do this?
So Biden's Department of Justice went after Galveston in Texas because there was one Democratic seat that the Republicans redrew a line, whatever, and eventually went to the Fifth Circuit. And the Fifth Circuit said, wait, you can't have these like political-based coalitions. And that kind of gave a green light for questions, at least, about redistricting. And now we're at those questions.
I love it. And by the way, we're going to talk about that tomorrow with Ryan Grodowski about redistricting in Texas and like really delve into this. So you just gave me an amazing question to ask. That's why I love this panel. All right, look, I think the winner, as a riff off of what we said, I think the winner this week is U.S. exporters. They're getting access to markets that they've never had. They've been given excuses why they couldn't forever. Donald Trump changed that. And that leads into my loser. The loser is the global trading system. For years, we were told we have to accept it, suck it up. There's nothing we can do about it. And even in the case of South Korea, we have a free trade agreement with them. And they came, the EU, I think, exemplified it the most early this week when it said we had to readjust the imbalance that existed. And that's what Trump has done, is upended it. And these countries that initially called him taco or whatever came to him on bended knee and said, yes, sir, we'll take a 20% tariff. Thank you very much. And I think that shows to me the power of the difference that President Trump has exhibited on leadership. Anyway, I always love the panel. You guys, and you brought it strong. I loved it. This was great conversation, guys. Thank you for doing that. Guys, tomorrow, as I mentioned, 2 great conversations, one with Jim McLaughlin, President Trump's pollster, and the other one, as I mentioned, with Ryan Grodowski, to talk about this redistricting impact, not just in Texas, but Florida and other states. And will Democrats try to seek retribution where they can? Is that possible? Some states, yes, some states, no. And then next week, Harmeet Dillon, Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director, so much more. That's why you have to hit the subscription button, notification button. Join us at 6 every night for the premiere. And always, what am I going to tell you? Yeah, that's right. Go to SeanSpicer.com, sign up for the free newsletter, and give it away as a VIP subscription to that friend that you've always wanted to buy a gift for. Maybe you have a longtime family rift and you say, Mom, Dad, I wanted to show how much I love you. I'm buying you a VIP gift certificate to Sean Spicer's newsletter. Nothing says I love you and I want forgiveness like a subscription to my newsletter. Anyway, I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.